Have you ever been in a relationship with someone and suddenly, out of nowhere, they look at you and ask, "Why do you love me?" And let's be honest, sometimes we need a reminder of why we love someone, right? Welcome to The Reason I Love Him, The Real Him, a series where we'll be diving into and uncovering all the wonderful reasons to love our Heavenly Groom. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take some time to consider, does God even want us to love Him? Does He even care? So, take a moment to recall, if you can, God's ultimate commandment according to the Bible. So, what ultimately is the commandment of the Lord? In Deuteronomy 6:5, we read, "You shall love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength." God really just wants us to love Him like a giant teddy bear. Well, more than a giant teddy bear. There are many times, in fact, in the book of Deuteronomy, when the people of Israel are given this commandment from the Lord to love Him wholeheartedly. It is presented as the essence of the law, of God's commandments. Even Jesus reminds us of this in Luke 10:27 and Mark 12:30. So, why is this repeated over and over and presented as the greatest commandment? Well, listen up. There is power in devotion. Yes, I said it. Power. When we are devoted to something, we come under its influence. Sometimes we even hear people talk about how a husband and wife begin to resemble each other. And even like with pets, with dogs, they begin to resemble their master. When we are devoted to God, when we love Him fully, we begin to resemble Him. Our devotion takes us on a wonderful journey of being conformed to the image of God. We were created in His image, but then sin came into the world, and we were separated from Him. We no longer resembled Him perfectly because sin is not the nature of God. Through the law and sacrifices implemented in the time of Moses, Israel began a journey of reconciling to God, reconciling to God's image. This was a journey that culminated with the gospel and the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Through Jesus' perfect sacrifice on the cross, our mirrors are truly washed clean and shined in order to once again reflect God's most holy image. The difference between the sacrifices of the Israelites and the sacrifice of Jesus is like cleaning a mirror with cheap paper towels and vinegar versus Windex and a microfiber cloth. Yes, both mirrors are clean, but the paper towel probably leaves behind some streaks and lint. So we see in Matthew 9:13 and 12:17, Jesus says or reminds us, "I desire mercy and not sacrifice." Jesus brings this up twice. Even in Hosea 6:6, we see the Lord says, "For I desire mercy and not sacrifice, and knowledge of God more than burnt offerings." The Hebrew word for mercy here is chesed, which means steadfast love, loyalty, faithfulness. Basically, a love that endures. It's about one's love for the Father. It's about our heart's posture, a deep and genuine love for Him. Now, think about this. We can only truly love someone when we know them, when we spend time with them. And we can only fully express our love to them if we spend time with them, right? I mean, try telling your friend you haven't talked to in 3 years that you love them. I mean, you haven't responded to them in 3 years, and all out of nowhere, "I love you." So, what's the key here? Do you remember? Devotion. Be devoted to God. Let Him consume your heart, mind, body, and soul. Don't take your eyes off Him. In primary school, I remember one of my teachers mentioned to my mother how very observant I was, that my eyes would follow him even as he walked up and down the classroom. That's what it is, following God, keeping our faces turned towards him and our eyes locked on him, never straying for even a moment. Proverbs 4, verse 25 to 27 reads, "Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Keep your foot from evil." Keeping from evil here is mentioned in relation to turning to the right or to the left, straying from the path, taking your eyes off God. If our mind is not consumed by the thoughts of God, then there is room for fleshly thoughts to take root. Therefore, we should keep our eyes on what is good and right and holy, what is lovely and pure, as we are advised in Philippians 4:8. We should contemplate God's truth and his ways. Jesus said he could only do what he saw the Father do. We could say this was the key to his perfection. He followed the Father to a T. He obeyed him. He kept his eyes stayed on him at all times. He loved him with all his heart, and Jesus invites us to do the same. I invite you to do the same. The bottom line is, love conquers it all. If the love of God is not in you, you cannot truly love God. Let love lead the way. Let the love of God reign in your heart. I dare you to do it. So I hope you enjoyed this first episode of The Real Him, The Reason I Love Him. Join me next time as we dive into just one of the many reasons to love him. Until next time, shalom and take care.